I would just wish away the swim meet when I would be doing incredible, and I should really just be soaking it in and enjoying it because like those are the moments that I'm going to remember for the rest of my life.
Welcome to Everybody Pulls the Tarp, the go-to podcast for high performers. I'm Andrew Moses, and each week I talk with Olympians, pro athletes, TV stars, Grammy winners, best-selling authors, CEOs, and other high performers to uncover their success secrets. Every conversation is jam-packed with inspiration and actionable ideas we all can apply to our own lives, personally and professionally. Get ready for a behind-the-scenes look at the techniques, processes, and mindsets powering the world's most successful people. Let's go. Hi, everyone, and welcome to a new season of Everybody Pulls the Tarp. This week, I'm excited to share my latest conversation with Team USA swimmer and 8-time Olympic medalist Regan Smith. If you've been listening to this podcast for a while now, you may remember my first conversation with Regan from a few years ago. At the time, she was fresh off winning 3 Olympic medals at the 2020 Tokyo Games, where she won 2 silver medals and 1 bronze. This past summer, Regan added 5 more Olympic medals to her count, winning 2 golds and 3 silvers at the 2024 Paris Olympics. In Paris, Regan swam backstroke on the 4x100 meter medley team that set a new world record. And she also became the only woman to ever medal in the 200 meter backstroke, 200 meter butterfly, and 100 meter backstroke in the same Olympic Games. In our latest conversation, which we recorded back in November, Regan and I explored her whirlwind experience preparing for the Paris Games, the complicated mix of emotions she felt at her second Olympics, and what she's learned about herself as a person and a swimmer along the way. My friends, this conversation is raw, vulnerable, and a powerful behind-the-scenes look at what it takes to achieve success in a sport where fractions of a second can make all the difference. But this episode is about far more than swimming. It's filled with actionable ideas on navigating uncertainty, overcoming fear, and finding the formula that works best for you when you are trying to reach your full potential in anything. Regan's wisdom is well beyond her years, and our conversation is jam-packed with lessons you can apply to your own life, personally and professionally. I hope you take away as much from this one as I have. Oh, and one more thing. This podcast is presented solely for educational and entertainment purposes. It is not intended to be a substitute for the advice of a physician, psychotherapist, or other qualified professional. So, let's pull the tarp and get straight to Regan Smith. Regan, where I want to begin, let's get straight to it. Like the biggest difference between the 2024 Olympics in Paris and your first Olympic Games in Tokyo in 2020. Talk about that for a moment.
Yeah, I'd say, the overwhelming and like most obvious difference was just COVID versus real world Olympics. Like having the opportunity to have my family travel to the games and watch me in person instead of being on their couch, like all the way across the world. So that was really, really nice. Got to spend a lot of time with them. It was also nice just having spectators in the stands in general. Like, it was so deafeningly loud in Paris in like the best way possible. The energy was amazing. And in Tokyo, you could like hear a pin drop before your race. So that was really interesting too. I would say just COVID was the overwhelming difference. And I know that's a boring answer, but just COVID made everything so unbelievably different in Tokyo. And since that was my first Olympic Games, that was all I knew. That was my impression of what the Olympics were. And so to then get this real experience for the first time in Paris was very, very special. And then it was kind of like that aha moment of like, like this is what the Olympics should be, not whatever the heck was going on when the pandemic was happening. So I'm very grateful that I got to experience that.
You, despite all the challenges in 2020, you still had a lot of success. In your first Olympic Games, you had 2 silvers and 1 bronze, came away from the games with 3 medals. I'm curious, like looking back, even though it was obviously challenging and now you know how different air quote normal Olympics is compared to what it was in 2020. Do you think it was a little bit of an advantage that you had never experienced the Olympics before as compared to Olympians who were returning to Olympic Games in 2020 after having experienced the normal Olympics pre-COVID?
That's a good point. I hadn't considered that. Honestly, I'd assume yes, because I feel like it would, I mean, yeah, because if your first Olympics was Rio or London or something, you know what the Olympics is about, you understand the vibes, you know the ins and outs of everything. And then going into Tokyo, it was just literally the weirdest meet ever by a long shot. And so I know that a lot of people were struggling with like having no spectators in the stands, having all of the protocol be very different, not having their family there with them, because there were a number of people on the team in Tokyo, at least on Team USA, who it was going to be their last games. Like they weren't going to keep swimming after that. And I think they really, really struggled internally with realizing like, wow, this is it for me. And like, I don't get to spend those moments with my family. Like, I don't get to have spectators in the stands watching me. Like, so it's just kind of sad and bleak for a lot of people, I think, who could compare it to previous games. But for me, I just feel like I was wide eyed and bushy tailed and coming in like really excited because I didn't have any expectations or like preconceived notions about like what the games were about. So yeah, I think it helped mentally just because I had nothing to compare it to. And I think people who did have something to compare it to probably viewed it very negatively compared to what they were used to.
Now, obviously, there are lots of things, like you said, that were disappointing about not having the normal Olympic experience in 2020. But in 2024, with going back to all of the normal stimulation and potential distractions and noise, not just the noise in the crowd, but like all the noise around you, right? That proverbial noise. Did you find it particularly jarring early on when you got to Paris to a point where you maybe needed to kind of rethink how you were going to focus, how you were going to dial in your energy? Was that a challenge at all?
Thankfully, no. And I think it's partially due to what we were chatting about before we started recording. I had been living out of a suitcase for 3 months before the game started. I was jet setting all around the country doing random things because my coach, Bob, randomly announced in the beginning of April that he was leaving his head coaching position at Arizona State University and was taking the head coaching position at UT Austin, effective immediately. So he jumped ship and had to move to Austin, and he took all of the professional swimmers with him. So with no warning, I had to pack up what I could in my apartment, leave it empty for months, and live out of half a dozen Airbnbs over the course of X months because we were training in Austin, and then we did a training trip in Colorado Springs because it's good to get altitude training when you're a swimmer. And then we had a meet in Irvine, California. And then I popped home for a couple of days over Memorial Day in Minnesota. So I was literally just jumping here, there, everywhere. And I had no sense of like normalcy or calm or routine or anything for months. And so then I think by the time that I got to Paris, I was just like, all right, bring it on. I feel like there was nothing that could sway me, nothing that could distract me because I'd been training very heavily, very seriously for months with the most psychotic variables that I'd ever had to deal with in my entire swimming career. And it was terrible while I was going through it in the spring. I was an emotional wreck, just like trying to deal with everything. And because I'm a very detail and routine type A person, or at least I was. I think that entire experience changed me fundamentally. But yes, I was struggling a lot with that in the spring. And I think, yeah, by the time I got to Paris, I was so numb to everything. So I was able to roll with the punches and really take what came my way. And I think that was the most focused and cool, calm, and collected, low key I'd ever felt at a swim meet. And like, thank God, because the Olympics is the Olympics, obviously. And I think it could have been very easy to have a very different mindset going into it. So I do look at everything that happened with the coaching change and moving on a whim. I view that as a blessing because I think it really helped prepare me.
There is a lot to that. And it's certainly been a through line through many of the conversations that I've had with the world's top performers, and certainly just in research and reading and learning that I've done studying top performers. This idea that sometimes we need to intentionally take ourselves out of our comfort zone, right? That we could get too comfortable so that when something disruptive happens in the heat of the moment, right, it could send us in the wrong direction. And by essentially practicing that discomfort, by intentionally, or in your case, like preparing, and you didn't intentionally choose this, but you embraced it. You embraced this idea of kind of working amidst the chaos. when you got to a scenario where there was opportunity for chaos and challenge and disruption, you were more prepared for it. A great example that I think about in this context is there's lots of people who've talked about the way Steph Curry practices. Steph Curry doesn't just practice free throws. Of course, he practices his free throws, but he practices shooting off balance, right? He practices shooting off balance. And then people say, well, that was just such a lucky shot. Well, it wasn't a lucky shot because he spent hours and hours and hours practicing amidst discomfort. He intentionally chose to kind of find that discomfort and learn how to navigate. And I think there's something to what you experienced in the lead up to the Paris Games that really prepared you to deal with the stimulation and that could be otherwise potentially jarring at the Olympic Games.
No, you're exactly right. And I will say, like, I did not intentionally like shake things up because I loved routine. And so that was all against my will. But again, as you said, there is something to it. And so I think it did end up helping me and I learned a lot from it. And so now then moving forward, I've kind of been able to look at myself and think like, okay, even though inherently like everyone enjoys comfort, everyone likes safety and knowing what's coming next and sticking to their routine and then, you know, like not just rocking the boat in their life. But I've really learned that that helps my swimming because like when everything is going perfect in your life and you can control every single variable, then when you get to a competition, or I feel like this is applicable, like no matter if you're an athlete or not, but like competition, work meeting, whatever, like obviously you're not going to be able to control every single variable. Things aren't going to go your way. Things are bound to go wrong. That's just life. That's just what happens. And yeah, like you're just not going to be able to take things as they come if you've been so used to having the power to control every single variable, like in your day-to-day routine at home. And so, yeah, I learned a lot from that. And so moving forward, even into this new season where I've been taking a pretty hefty break, also, it's been very nice, but I am still trying to bounce around a lot and like change up my training very frequently and I'm traveling a lot. And so I literally have next to no routine whatsoever. Like I'll even show you right now, like I'm at my apartment here in Phoenix and I have no furniture, no nothing because I moved all of my stuff to Austin when I bought my new apartment. But I love being here in Phoenix, but like this apartment is so bare bones and like for example, I've just been living out of like 2 suitcases for like weeks at a time and I don't know. I just feel like it helps me because it's like, yeah, I'm not living in like the most comfortable, like glamorous situation, but like I love being here. Being here makes me happy. And like, if I can't, like, I don't know. I've just been thinking and learning so much about how all of these things can help me in my swimming and in life and like not being so type A like I always used to be. So I don't know. It's a lot to think about, but it's very fascinating and I've learned quite a bit from it. And yeah, like this situation with my suitcases has been very freeing and I think it's helped me like when I go to competitions in the future. Like in the past I used to hate like living out of a suitcase, like not having all of my clothes and like things that I needed XYZ, not having my own personal shower, having to have a roommate, like a whole bunch of things. And all of this has just been so great for my personal growth. I just can't even explain it. So I always try to do things now that I would not have done pre-Paris, like living out of these suitcases, for example, for like months on end. So I don't know. It's just been a fun change that I've seen develop in myself over the past couple months.
I love that word that you used there. Freeing I think freeing can be like a really powerful word in our lives, personally
Definitely.
and professionally. I really love that word that you used there. It's a beautiful word. It's just a beautiful idea to think about how creating more, how that idea of freeing ourselves from whatever it is that we feel constrained by can create immense opportunity for us personally and professionally. You talked about kind of really being happy with where you are right now. Like when you dial it all down, like where do you think a lot of that happiness is coming from? I mean, part of it's got to be that a little bit more of that freeing sense that you're feeling. Is there anything else?
I would say the year before the Olympics, and I'm 22 and I live a very gifted life and I recognize that. And so I don't want to sound like I'm not like I'm blanking on the word. The year leading up to the Olympics was the hardest year of my life so far with personal things, with swimming, just with everything. And so I think I really and I was never medicated or anything, but I really truthfully think I fell into this depression for like months and months leading up to the games. And I also got mono like last December, January. And so that really threw a wrench into things, affected my mental health. And so now, like, after everything was over and I could like sit back and like take a deep breath after Paris, I think I realized then in hindsight, like just how unhappy I had been for that entire year because I was so like locked in on what I was doing, dealing with a lot of things like personally, and just like being able to like sit back and take that deep breath. It's like, I don't know, it's like going through bad times makes the good times feel so much sweeter, right? Like we've all been through like tough shit in our lives. And then when like things let up and like the rain stops, you're like, oh my gosh, like life is so good, you know? And so I think like that's just been a wave that I've been riding since like August, since the games have been over. And so I think it's just partially been just because I just came out of a really hard year, but also because I think I've just, again, learned a lot about myself through that process in the months leading up to the games and during the games. And I think I'm just like a lot more in tune with my body and like how to hold space for myself when I'm feeling more stressed or anxious and like dealing with that. I think I had like really high functioning like anxiety, but it just got in the way of like everything. And I think I just like reached a breaking point this year where I was just like, I'm ultimately in control of my own thoughts and my reality. And like, I don't have to be prisoner in my own brain. And that was like such an enlightening moment for me. And so I think ever since I had that aha moment too, I've been a lot more in control of my thoughts and the way that I view the world and myself. And I think that's really helped contribute to my happiness too. And then the superficial things, like I just love being in Arizona and I took it for granted when I thought that I was going to be here for who knows how long. But now knowing that my move to Austin is on the horizon and I have to get over there pretty soon, I like do not take a single second of being here in this apartment and being in the city of Tempe for granted. I love it so, so much. So whenever I'm here, I'm just very happy as well. So I would say it's a big combination of all of those things. But yeah, very, very grateful that I'm doing as well as I am mentally right now, just after the tough year that I went through. So it's nice. And I know that life comes in seasons. And so this won't last forever. And that's okay too, because that's just like part of, what we go through as humans. But I'm very much reveling in this feeling.
Well, that was beautifully said, Regan. Really, really beautifully said. And I remember our last conversation, something that you talked about then as being something that was going to be a big theme that you were going to be focused on was you wanted to, and I'm going to paraphrase a little bit here, and I'm trying to recall our conversation from a couple of years ago, but you talked about this idea of wanting to shift your mindset from fear and like wishing that competitions were going to be over to more joy and excitement and enjoying the ride. And I know you talked about a lot of different things as it pertains to your life, both personally and professionally, that the context of that piece of our conversation was specifically around competition, right? Like you were almost, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you were almost like afraid of the competition, or you were at least looking forward to the competition being over.
Yeah.
You had this realization that you're kind of like in the glory days right now, and that you needed to take a moment to kind of enjoy this a bit. And I'm curious, do you feel like you've been able to come as far in that regard as you had hoped at that point?
I think I will forever be a work in progress with that, but I think I've made huge strides forward, and not just in swimming, but in life also, which I think has been super nice because ultimately I won't be a swimmer forever either. Like I'm going to have to hang up my suit someday. But I guess getting into that like a little bit, I just in every aspect of life was never a enjoy the journey type of person. Like I always needed something to look forward to. I was always a person who had a calendar on the wall and X'd off every single day just to like count down and be like, oh, like 5 days to the weekend, or like 2 weeks till I get to go home for Christmas, or like, oh, like, you know what I mean? Like I always had to have something to look forward to. And like, for example, this period of my life since Paris has been over has been so incredible. Like I just wake up and look forward to doing the most mundane things. Whereas like for most of my life, I would just be like, I would just struggle to see purpose in life if I didn't have something to look forward to. like a swim meet or a vacation or hang out with my friend, like whatever. And now I'm just like, I'm so excited to wake up tomorrow and like eat my oatmeal for breakfast and like run to Target and like shop through the aisle. Like, you know what I mean? And so that I think has been a very nice example of like how content and happy I feel in my life right now. But yes, I completely took that mentality into my swimming as well, where I would like look forward to a competition. And then during the meet, I could not enjoy it at all because I hated the anxiety and the nerves that I felt around competition. And no one likes that feeling of nerves, anxiety, fear. And you just want that to be over as quickly as possible. Like that feeling of being in fight or flight mode is awful. And so I would just wish away the swim meet when I would be doing incredible, you know, and I should really just be soaking it in and enjoying it because like those are the moments that I'm going to remember for the rest of my life. Like if I make it to 80 years old, if I'm 80 years old, you know, like that's what I'm going to remember. Like those are the glory days, right? And I've gotten much, much better with that. And I think Paris and Olympic trials were two meets where I had so much fun. And that's not to say that I didn't have fits of really bad anxiety and nerves and I struggled to eat or sleep because I was so nervous. But I was also really able to look in the mirror and say, like, okay, I'm about to compete in front of 20,000 people tonight. And like, they're excited to watch me race. Like, they bought tickets because they're entertained by like what I'm doing and what my competitors are doing. Like, how cool is that, you know? And so I really, really, really was able to look at it from that perspective. Truly, I think probably for the first time in my life and like really soak it in. And I think it showed because like at Olympic trials and in Paris, I just looked excited to be there. I always had a smile, like a very genuine smile on my face. And I remember those experiences very, very well. And I think like most other meets that I'd been to, I wished it away so desperately that I barely remember it because the whole time I was just like, oh, I want this to be over. I want this to be over. I want this to be over. And so like, truthfully, I have like little to no memory of Tokyo just because the whole time I was terrified and didn't want to be there. I did, obviously, like I love it, but it was such a love-hate relationship. And so I think I will ultimately forever struggle with that balance of like feeling the nerves, but then also being like, this is so cool anyways. Like I was just at a series of competitions in Asia for 3 weeks and like some of the most fun competitions of my entire life. But there were also a couple of races that I would be sitting in like the call room that you have to sit in before they walk you out behind the blocks. And I would just be like, I don't want to do this. Like, I just want this to be over as soon as possible. And then I would get mad at myself because I'd be like, dude, like, it's not that big of a deal. Like, this is swimming. Like, you came to these meets in Asia because you wanted to have fun and travel and enjoy swimming. Like, nothing will change. If you get last place in this event or you win and break a world record, nothing changes in your life. Like, why do you want to wish this process away? Like, it's fine. And so that was kind of, it was just kind of frustrating. Like, it was nice to see growth. Like, even though I was still feeling that way, at least I could acknowledge that I was feeling that way and like kind of get frustrated with myself. Whereas before I was just like, yes, like wish this away. Like, let's just get this over as fast as possible. So I am seeing growth and at least I'm like, oh my gosh, come on, girl. Like we've been practicing this. Like, don't feel this way. But yeah, very winded answer to give you. But yeah, I've been noticing a lot of change and growth in my personal life, in my swimming career, which has been nice to see. But ultimately, I think there'll always be improvements to be made because I guess that's just part of life.
I think all of us are always a work in progress, to use your phrase there. I think that's one thing that certainly I've learned about myself and why I'm fully committed to continuous growth and improvement in everything I do personally and professionally, and why so many of the high performers I've talked to say the exact same thing. I think we're all a work in progress, to use your word. And it sounds like, just reflecting on some of the things that you shared there, it sounds like when some of these more challenging thoughts creep into your mind, the first thing that kind of comes to mind is you try to kind of reframe it through a little bit of gratitude. You try to think about, again, people bought tickets to watch me and my competition do this. Like, this is pretty cool. Like, I should be grateful that I'm here in this opportunity. And certainly, and you didn't say it, but certainly I could imagine there's a part of you that says, 5-year-old, 6-year-old, 7-year-old Regan could not even believe like where I am right now and would be so proud of what you're about to do. And then I also think there's a bit of gratitude, it seems like, in kind of reframing, and then also maybe just shifting the perspective a little bit to say nothing really is going to change. This isn't, in the grand scheme of life, that big of a deal, right? Like, and it seems like you've been able to improve at reframing things a bit.
Definitely. And I think sometimes I would struggle with the gratitude piece because I would always say to myself, like, oh, I should be grateful to be here. Like, I get to do this, blah, blah, blah. But then, like, I ultimately like wouldn't feel grateful, or like I wouldn't want to do it. And then I just feel guilt. Like, I would just feel really bad that I was feeling these thoughts, even if I should have felt a different way. So I was like, okay, how can I ultimately reframe it to like, and so with the piece about Paris, like being grateful that this many people bought tickets, I kind of had to be like, okay, like, let's just think about doing nothing but like entertaining these people. Like, that's my mission. Like, that's all I need to do here. It's not about winning. It's not about going a best time. Like, it is, but I didn't want to view it that way. So I was like, hey, let's just view it as like, these people bought tickets. They just want to show. Like, they just want to be entertained. And I know that if I was in the stands, I would want to show. Like, I love to watch swimming. I think it's really fun. And whenever I watch swimming, I'm just excited about it. And when I see the results, I'm just like, oh, it's not that deep. Like, whether they got first or second, like, it was a damn good race regardless. And I know that when you're the one doing it, it matters to you a lot more what place you're getting. But I think trying to view myself, like put myself in the shoes of the spectators, I was like, all right, it's literally about entertainment. Like, how much fun can this be for people to watch? Like, that's what I'm trying to get at here. And I think that then made it a lot easier for me to then be grateful that I was the one who got to serve that entertainment. And then, yeah, like, it made it easier for me to enjoy the race more and like look forward to like competing and being neck and neck with my competitors. Whereas before I would just crumble under that pressure. So that really helped me too.
That idea of feeling guilty for not being grateful for something that you feel like you should be grateful for is something that I wrestle with. And I know so many others do. It's something that I think a lot of people wrestle with because it can be crippling. That idea of just being guilty for not being grateful for something that on the surface you feel like you should be grateful for. And it's something that I know I have to work through, and I know a lot of others do as well. All right, everyone, we'll get back to the conversation momentarily. But first, I want to tell you about my free weekly email newsletter, Tarp Pullers. Each week, I share an uplifting and inspirational tarp pulling story that is sure to brighten your day. And I also highlight some of the most powerful ideas I've learned on my journey talking to 200 and counting of the world's top performers. The newsletter is short, concise, and a reader recently told me this. She said it makes her day every time it hits her inbox. Go to everybodypullsthetarp.com/newsletter to sign up today. So we've talked about kind of this, how freeing and empowering this idea of kind of breaking out of your little bit of that type A routine, Regan, that has kind of been a part of your career personally, or part of your life personally and professionally over the years. One of the things that I'm always curious about is when you find an opportunity to disconnect a bit or entirely and have a little bit, you mentioned earlier, taking a little bit of a break, traveling a little bit, recharging. How hard is it to get back into that routine and get kind of redialed in? And what are some of the things that you do to do that?
That's a really good question because it's something that I'm struggling with right now, honestly. So, I mean, Paris ended 3.5 months ago now. I took the entire month of August off. September, I started swimming. I have been training with Arizona State, and so they were swimming once a day, pretty chill, pretty easy, and have historically been a very, very good trainer. Like, some people train above their level in competition. Some people train below. Some people are like pretty consistent with what they're capable of doing at competitions. I always train above, like, where I think, like, my coaches have said that too. Like, I've just always been a very great trainer compared to a racer. And now I think like I've just changed so much. And I knew that after Paris, I wanted to take a fat break, and I didn't want to be mentally checked in to training, to competition, to swimming in general. I just kind of wanted to enjoy myself and, start locking in and getting serious in like January of 2025. And so since September and training has started, I have bluntly just been doing like awful in training just because I know that I don't have to be locked in. But as someone who, again, historically has trained very, very well and at a high level, and when swimming is a time-based sport, I know exactly how far away I am from when I'm at my best. And that is very mentally difficult also. And that's been a nice challenge for me. But again, like as the months have gone on, we're now into November. So it's been 3.5 months and I'm still like not very mentally locked in. I'm getting my butt kicked by my teammates in training when normally like I would be like the best one in the pool training wise, right? Like that was something that I took a lot of pride in. And so now it's like I'm in the bottom 50%, I'd say. And it's just been a big change. But again, I know that I'm trying to play the long game, right? Like I want to be ready for LA 2028. I don't need to be ready for something in 2 months. And I know that burnout is a very real thing for a lot of people, whether you're in sports or not. And so I'm just trying to let myself have this mental rest. But I am a very inherently competitive person. And so it is hard to go to practice every day and like get my butt kicked like I have been. So that's just been something that I've kind of been looking in the mirror recently and thinking like, okay, we should probably start thinking about getting serious pretty soon here. But honestly, I'm trying to figure out how to do that because I'm not terribly motivated right now. Like all cards on the table, like I show up to practice and I'm like, I don't really want to do this. Like I love being in Arizona. I love swimming outside. I love getting a tan. I love visiting with my friends. That's why I go to practice right now. I don't go to practice because I'm trying to train and get better at something. And I know inevitably I'm going to have to make that change pretty soon. And I wish I had good advice to give of like how I lock in and like start getting serious. And I don't know if it's just like a natural flow of things where like one time gets closer to something important and I'll just kind of like be able to make a shift internally and that'll just kind of work itself out. I don't know. But I know that struggling with motivation and burnout is such a universal thing. And I wouldn't say it's something I'm going through right now, but I guess it's just something I'm trying to avoid. So hopefully that all made sense. But yeah.
It does. It does. Managing your energy and navigating and mitigating burnout, avoiding burnout, I think is really inherently challenging because sometimes you don't know you need the break until you take the break, right? And when you take the break, there's all this unknown coming out of the break of well, what, like, am I going to be able to get back to where I was? Am I going to have lost ground? What is the opportunity cost of taking the break? But we all know that the science is there, that the breaks are incredibly important. And I know for you, the last number of years for in your career have been so geared around this idea of trusting your instincts. And you had that instinct to turn pro a number of years ago and leave Stanford, which was an incredibly difficult decision for you since Stanford was like your dream school from your early childhood. And there are so many other ways that you've trusted your instincts. And I think this is just another example where you have to be confident that whether you want to flip that switch in one day or you want to slowly ramp up and gradually get back to where you are, that you're going to be able to do it because of your history and your ability to dig deep and find that in the past.
Yeah, definitely. And also like I always struggled. This is something that I worked on with my therapist. I always look through things with an emotional lens. And there's a time and place for emotions, right? And like listening to your heart, following your heart, thinking with your heart. But there's also a lot of times where you should think with your head and think logically. And I never did that ever. I was a completely emotional thinker. I never looked at the facts of situations. Like logic always went out the window with me. I think that's part of why I really struggled with anxiety before races and thinking that I wasn't good enough, that I was going to lose, that yada, 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 XYZ. And so I think that's really helped me with this break because in my entire swimming career, the longest break I've ever taken is like 2 weeks. And then I was like hitting the ground running back to 100% training right away, like needed to be back to where I was time wise in my previous season, like as fast as possible. And if I wasn't seeing results right away, I would get so stressed out. I'd be like, oh my gosh, like I'm over the hump with my career. Like I'm getting older. I'm never going to be where I was, blah, blah, blah. And now again, like if me a year or two ago saw what I was doing right now, saw that 3 months after the games, I was still going as slow as I've been going in practice, she would be like freaking out, literally being like, oh my God, like needing to make plans about like what's she going to do after she's done swimming. Like, oh my gosh, like, like her career's over. Like she needs to go back to school and get her degree, like, which I'm doing right now. But she would literally just be thinking like, okay, we need a plan B, plan C, plan D. Like swimming is out. Like we're never going to get back to work. Like just like freaking out, basically, like head spinning, thoughts going 1,000 miles an hour. And so it has been a very, very nice change now to like not be thinking and like worried about this.
Regan, you mentioned the word emotion. And as we get ready to wrap up our conversation, I just have to ask you about that moment on the podium with your teammates at the end of the Paris Games when you had just won gold. You had broken a world record in the 4x100 medley. Everybody watching, I'm sure, couldn't help but notice the emotion on your face. You know, there's a picture where you are clearly emotional. One of your teammates is kind of, I don't know, I want to say consoling you, but certainly supporting you.
Yeah.
When you think back to that moment, like if you had to distill it down to like one emotion, what was the one emotion that you were feeling in that moment?
Gratitude, I'd say, but there were so many mixes of emotions, if you don't mind me getting into it.
Yeah.
But gratitude was overwhelming. Every member of that relay had an opportunity to stand on top of the podium, and that was my very first time ever. So that was like, it just felt like such a long time coming. I'd won an Olympic gold medal my entire life. I didn't win one in Tokyo, and that's not to say I was so proud of my silvers and my bronze, but gold was my goal forever. And then coming into Paris, gold was my goal. And not just in a relay, but I wanted to stand on top of the podium individually so badly. And I finished my 3 individual races and I had 3 silvers. And I ultimately, in those individual races, I put together 3 incredible swims. And the girls who I was competing against are generational talents. And it's funny because I would consider myself one too. So it's just crazy, like the sheer level of talent that I was competing against between Kaylee McEwen and Summer McIntosh, just like literally people who will go down in history in the sport probably forever. And also every time I raced individually, it took an Olympic record to win the gold medal. And that did not happen in every single event. So it just goes to show like the level of talent that was in my events. And there were times that I was under the previous Olympic record as well, but it still wasn't enough to win gold. And so I finished my 3 individuals and I was so proud of myself because I think I knew that like, okay, if I had swam like 3 shitty races and had missed the opportunity on gold because maybe if I had put together a better race then I would have won, then I think I would have been so unbelievably upset and disappointed in myself. But I put together 3 very, very good swims that I was very proud of. I executed well. I was happy to be there. I was competing and there literally just wasn't really anything more that I could have done. I went a best time also in one of my events, like a PR personal record. It was amazing. And so then, yeah, to walk away with 3 silvers, I was like, there wasn't anything else I could do. Like, damn, like I went under previous Olympic records and it still wasn't enough. Like, oh my gosh, like I am part of such a historic games right now of such incredibly talented women. And like, I'm still amongst one of the best. Like, that's pretty cool. And then getting to that relay, I was so, so grateful to win the gold and not only win a gold, but break a world record. But I had a chip on my shoulder about it because in the 100-meter backstroke individually, it took a 57.3 to win, 57.3 seconds. I went 57.6 seconds in the individual race. Then in the relay, 5 days later, I did the 100-meter backstroke again because I was leading off the medley relay, and I went 57.2 seconds. And so I was kind of angry at myself because I was like, girl, if you had done this 5 days earlier, you would have been an Olympic champion in the 100 backstroke. But ultimately, that doesn't matter because you have to do it on the day. Like Olympic gold, I think is so fascinating because like you don't have to necessarily be the best swimmer there ever was to win Olympic gold. And I'm not saying Kaylee isn't. Kaylee is so unbelievably incredible, like one of one. But like it doesn't only take talent to win Olympic gold, it takes mental talent as well. Like you need to be mentally there and then physically there on the day as well. And so I think that's really fascinating about Olympic gold that not a lot of people think about. You don't necessarily have to be the best there ever was, but you do have to be pretty damn good up here in your head when the pressure's on and like you have to do it in that moment. And I couldn't. I went 57.6 and then I went 0.4 faster just a couple days later. And then now I'm the Olympic record holder in the 100 backstroke. But anyways, yeah, all that context to say, since standing on top of the podium, I was overwhelmingly so grateful to stand with three of my closest friends. I'm genuinely very, very close with Lily, Gretchen, and Tori. But yeah, they had all won Olympic golds before. Gretchen in the mixed medley relay, Lily King had won one in Rio in the 100 breaststroke, and then she's been on multiple gold medal relays. And then Tori Huss won in the 100 fly at the beginning of the meet. And so, yeah, that was my first time up there. It felt so special. But there was like the tiniest voice in my head that was like, you could have done this in your race, like individually. But ultimately, I didn't. Like, it isn't like like no excuses there. But I didn't put together the absolutely perfect race on that individual day. 57.6 is still a great time. So I wasn't like pissed about it. But then to see then that I was able to go 57.2, it was tough. But I refused to let myself feel that for too long because ultimately, like, I got an Olympic gold medal, my dream forever, and I broke a world record. So lots and lots and lots of emotions compiled into one body. But the one overwhelmingly was gratitude.
I'm so grateful, Regan, that we explored all that just now, that you didn't just kind of answer with kind of one simple emotion, because it's complex. And
very.
I think what you explained there is something that, again, I think you don't have to be a swimmer. It doesn't have to just be sports. It could be anything that anybody listening is navigating. I think what I take away from what you just shared there is that things are complex, things are complicated, and we can experience different, seemingly conflicting emotions at the same time when we experience something. And I think that's one of the important lessons that certainly I'm going to take away from our conversation today. And I think many, many people listening will as well. I can't tell you how grateful I am for the opportunity to have gotten to know you a bit over the last few years, and the opportunity to follow your career and see the personal and professional growth that you've experienced. I said a number of years ago when we recorded our episode that you had wisdom well beyond your years. And I still think that that's the case, that you continue to shine bright in the department of personal and professional growth. And like a true tarp puller, you are vulnerable and authentic and transparent, and you try and share what you've learned with the world. And I think that makes all of us better because of it. So thank you for being a tarp puller, Regan. I can't wait to have another conversation with you in the future and continue to explore all the growth that you're going to accomplish between now and then.
Thank you so much. Yeah, this was a great conversation, and thank you for listening to my long-winded answers. And yeah, I'm really glad that you enjoyed it, and I hope that the listeners do too.
Regan, I know the listeners will. Thank you so much for your time. We'll have to do this again soon.
For sure. Thank you.
Thank you for joining me this week. Be sure to subscribe in your favorite podcast app so you can catch all of our upcoming episodes. And if you are like me and want a world full of tarp pullers, then leave a review to help others find us. You can also follow me on Instagram at AndrewMoses123 and sign up for my email newsletter at everybodypullsthetarp.com/newsletter. I'll share tips and insights to help you achieve maximum success and happiness. Until next time, keep pulling the tarp.